do it again.
Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso.
YouTube, what's goody? It's your man's WeaponizedEX back again, finally with another video. A lot of stuff been going on in Call of Duty lately, man. A lot of stuff been going on in COD. I have been playing COD. I've been playing a lot of COD. I'm streaming a lot. Just haven't been making a lot of videos, so I need to get back into that. We talked about that, but you know, for today's video, this is just gonna kind of be like a conversation piece. We're actually talking about. Sorry, and like I'm on cocaine over here. But we're gonna be talking about Faze clan and the whole Dynasty conversation. Basically, that people have been having surrounding them, because the team. I don't know if you guys follow CDL, but the team has been going crazy. Like Faze has been part of Call of Duty for a long time, but just lately they've just been like on a tear. So. And we're gonna kind of get into that. Definitely, you know, like, comment, and subscribe. Post your favorite team in the comment section, or you know, kind of who you feel like is, you know, one of the greatest dynasties or your favorite dynasty in gaming. And I'm gonna kind of also touch a little bit on Optic Gaming this season, because they were a team that was considered a dynasty, probably the longest running dynasty in Call of Duty. And what is one of them? And you know, they kind of just. They were not informed this season, and it was weird to watch. But yeah, it was just weird. It's just like they can never really get it going. So also, I'm just gonna kind of compare some of the things that they've been doing this season and some of the things you've seen and heard with them versus Faze, and kind of see like what is it that really separates. And I don't think it's talent, man. I gotta say, like, I don't think it's talent. I think there's some other things that definitely play into it, into a team's success, especially in the CDL and how the league is set up. This season. But going into it, I would definitely say Faze is a dynasty. I mean, whenever you have a team that is immediately like in finals contention every season, and like two of the players, the roster basically that made up Faze, they had most of that roster. I think they were on United, and they won a world championship, and then they went to Faze, and they were immediately a dominant team. They dominated all season. Yeah, they didn't win champs, but then they came back next season and were favorited. They were favorited to win champs anyway, and then they won it all. So it was like definitely a dominant team. Like, if they weren't a dynasty before, I think after winning this past season, they definitely started themselves on that path. So I would say they're a dynasty, but I would say they're in like the beginning stages of it. Like, you know, like a tier 1 dynasty, if you could think of it like that, you know. So going into it, a lot of people, when they look at dynasties, they're looking at like the talent, you know, like what makes a dynasty. They're like, well, you got to have 4 of the best players in the game. Now, I believe Faze does have 4 of the best players, like if not the best players in the game on their team, but I don't think that really, the talent is really what's special about them. I think it's, to me, I think it has more so to do with the play styles, the way the play styles all play together, and with the way their organization is run right now. So, and also just the attitude of the players and different things. So we'll start on the organization side. Faze has just more coaching, which is crazy to think that they've been so dominant for so long, and they dominated so hard this season. And if you listen to their interviews and you watch their videos, they talk about how much extra coaching they get. They get analysts for SMD, they have analysts for hardpoint, they have analysts for control, analysts for rotation, the analysts that help, you know, the players with individual stuff. They get individual coaching, they get coaching as a team. You know, they separate off and coach like how to play together, how to play off of each other. So it's, you know, it's funny that they're the most dominant team and how much extra work that they put into coaching, because it's like, you know, some teams it's like they barely have one coach, you know, and the players are like telling him what to do, you know. So it's, you know, it's definitely a culture that they have there, where they're just like, we're gonna work as hard as possible, we're not gonna take anything for granted, we're definitely not gonna rest on our laurels. Because if you guys remember, halfway, if you watch this CDL season, halfway through the season, it kind of seemed like Faze was falling off, honestly. Like, I got that Yeti for y'all, by the way. Sponsor your boy. But no, it's like they kind of like fell off halfway through the season. And if you were looking at their Twitters and you're looking at like just the interviews and different things they were saying, they were like, well, yeah, we know what we're doing wrong. We're just gonna have to go back to the drawing board and adjust some things. And that's where the coaching comes in. But even at that level, even with having the 4 best players in the game, they were getting beat by teams. Like, they got beat by Seattle Surge at one point. So it was like, whoa, like, it doesn't matter how good you are. Like, the game is so competitive right now, and it's like, sometimes it's like any given Sunday, it's like any given tournament, a team could get hot and beat anybody, which is a cool thing about the scene. But you know, when that happens and you need to get back on track, that comes down to coaching, and it comes down also to mentality. So the mentality of the 4 players they have on this team, I think is a thing that not only is one of the bigger pieces of why they're a Dynasty right now, but I think it's one of the bigger pieces in them being a Dynasty going forward. Because if you look at a lot of Dynasties in gaming, and kind of like after the fact, you always end up hearing, well, there was one player who was always late to practice, or there's this one player who was just really toxic, or there's one player who, you know, 2 players, they just rubbed each other the wrong way, and it's like they couldn't get along. And it's like, yes, while they were winning all these matches, those cracks, internal cracks were happening, and it ended up, the team just ended up breaking up, and then the Dynasty ends. I think what's going to add to Faze's longevity, just as a team, is not only just the organizational structure, but just the attitude. If you watch their interviews, these guys are all very humble. Like, nobody takes credit for anything. Everybody's like always, well, you know, I'm just lucky to be on this team. My teammates are so great. You know, the team is doing this, team is doing that. Our coaches are great. And, you know, it's just a very team spirit that they have. Like, everybody is, you know, wants to be there, is proud to be there, and really enjoys playing with the people that they're playing with. And, you know, just that right there can make a team dangerous. Just having the vibes like that can make a team like really dangerous. So add that with the support from the organization, proper support from the organization and coaching. They don't have to fight their org, you know, in order to get better. Their org is actually helping them get better. There were a lot of teams, it's now that the season over, it's coming out, there were a lot of teams that were not being put in the best position by the players and by their orgs on those teams who were like undercutting them. So some of these teams that were like weirdly underperforming this season, come to find out there was stuff going on behind the scenes. Mindsets weren't right. People weren't showing up to practice. They're fighting their org the whole time, trying to get stuff to happen. So the fact that they didn't have to deal with all of that, and that it looks like it's part of their culture where that's not going to be a problem, hopefully, for the foreseeable future, that right there, I think, like, hands down, they're going to be down there for the next 2 years. Just off of that. Now, going into the talent, not to say that talent's not important, but look at Optic. Like, Optic is one of those teams, on paper, they've got some of the best players, literally some of the best players to ever, you know, play Call of Duty or play FPS in general. And it's like, you look at a team with these guys on, they got Formal, they got Scump, they got Dashy, they got Envoy. I think the season before on Modern Warfare, they were Huntsman, and they had, it was Seth, Formal, Envoy. At one point they had Pristini, and they had Arcides. So it's like, on paper, this team is like ridiculously stacked, right? But when it comes down to it, one problem I think Optic has, they have too many players on that team. Their skill sets aren't different enough. Like, they have a lot of players who can kind of do the same thing. And when that happens, I feel like you even see it on like the lowest level in like matchmaking. If you have 2 guys who are like really good sub-slayers, and they're both kind of like trying to outslay each other, then you have one, nobody's playing the objective, so like kill time's getting missed, or nobody's like really like playing routes for rotations, so it's like you're getting bad spawns. It's like, people's play styles have to differ enough in order for like there to be like a kind of harmony, you know what I'm saying? So it's that might be a whole nother video, shoot, just talking about that. But Faze definitely has that. I don't feel like Optic has that. They have a lot of talent, but they lack leadership, they lack organization, they lack leadership behind the scenes too, I think, because with those big name players, it's like, who do you really get to rein those guys in, to hold their feet to the fire, and to, you know, force them to show up to practice on time, and to, like, you know, force them to, you know, take certain things seriously? Like, who do you get to do that? You know, that's hard to do when you have a team of guys who are that big in the scene, who kind of already have their own ego, their own legacy, their own like legend or whatever. So that's difficult to do. That's a difficult team to manage. And I think that's you know, I'm sure Optic like coaching staff is great, but I wouldn't want that job. That's a tough job to have, in my opinion. And you know, going into Faze with them, their play styles all really just fit together well. So if you look at Optic, like, okay, you got Scump, he's a really good like sub-slayer. You got Envoy, he's another really good sub-slayer. You got Formal, he's a good AR, a good slayer. And you have Dashy, who's also a good AR and a good slayer. But it's like, you know, it kind of just seems like they're just they don't know whose turn it is to do what. It's kind of like they don't have a natural like harmony with what they're doing, because it's like so many of them can do the same thing. It's like, oh, is it my turn or is it your turn? And it seemed like sometimes in games they were just kind of like didn't know what to do. With Faze, you don't get that because I feel like everybody's play styles are so different but so complementary. So you have, like, of course, the Tiny Terrors. You have the duo of Simp and Beezy, and just off of that duo right there, you could have a dynasty. I believe really with just those two players right there, because like with a sub duo, like your two submachine gun players, you've got Simp, who's literally like, and the crazy part is, I don't even think he's peaked yet, which is scary to think about. But he's literally probably like one of the best just slayers, period. Like, I would say in any shooter game, like, he's up there with like your top slayers you want to look at across any game, like your Snipe Down or like Shroud or like, you know, like how the ogres were back in the day. I would put him up there with anybody. Like, he's kind of like how they in the beginning of that legend status. So he's definitely a crazy like sub slayer. He's kind of like your traditional sub slayer. He just has this up close in your face. He's using his shot and his movement to just like dominate against, you know, the top tier players. And you got to have a player who can do that and who can position themselves to do that. But where you get into problems is if you have two players who are trying to do that, and they're kind of overlapping, and it gets messy and it gets sloppy sometimes. So Abeezy is like a perfect counterpoint to him, because Abeezy is the same way. He's just a dog, like, with his shot and his movement, and he does some crazy things, but he plays their entry for them. So he's the type of guy, he'll throw himself out there for a first blood. He'll charge into a room first to open it up for his teammates. He'll, you know, he like throws himself at the enemy team over and over again to create openings for his team. Now, he's not constantly doing that, obviously. He knows when to play smart and when to play slow, but he pushes with his teammate a lot. He sets up Simp and like Celium and Arcity even for so many plays, and he's just so disruptive to the enemy team. It's like, that's a perfect combination, because you have your traditional like slaying power, your guy who's going to be kind of making those traditional flanks and cleaning up those kills like in that way. And then you have another guy who's just going to be creating opportunities, picking up hill time, kind of doing the dirty work, doing whatever needs to be done. And just like that right there is just a solid core to a COD team. If you have a guy who can slay like crazy and a guy who can like just do everything you need him to do, like, it has that clutch factor, because the BZ definitely has that. I mean, they all have it, but bro's clutch factor is crazy. I think his clutch factor is super underrated, honestly. But that's a solid core to the team. Then on top of that, they bring in R-Cities to have that in-game leader, to have that kind of veteran to, you know, to have that. That's what they needed. They just needed somebody who could in-game be like, okay, like, guys, let's slow it down. Stop doing this. Clean the comms up. Let's get back on track. Let's get back in this game right now. And he's done that. And but then it's like, with being an IGL, he's done that, but he also has the ability where he'll not only direct the team and take over comms, but then he'll just start frying and like carry. I've seen him carry them through like search series and carry them through like hard points, just destroying everything while he's communicating and, you know, directing the team. So to me, that is actually the most impressive thing for me as a player, when you can fry and like kind of be in your bag and still be directing your team and facilitating at the same time. It's like you're playing for yourself and you're playing for your team at the same time. It's extremely hard to do, especially at that high level. So that's, to me, like, that's something I really admire about R-Cities as a player, just his ability to do that. And then just again, on the organization side, to have that vision to be like, yo, we need to bring somebody in, you know, for that role. And they had their eye on R-Cities, and just the way it worked out so perfectly. It's like, again, it comes back to the organization. But then you have Celium, bro. Now Celium, people hate playing against this dude, man. They really do, because he's just such a rat. Like, and everybody says that about him, but it's not like an insult. It's like an insult, but it's also like a compliment too, because he's just a player you don't want to play against, because he's constantly like just using just these weird angles and like breaking the games in ways you didn't know it could be broken, and like just making weird plays that you just wouldn't see coming because you wouldn't think to do that. And he just makes these crazy like smart plays, and at the same time he does kind of like, he kind of plays dirty. He's not afraid to play dirty. He's not afraid to bait you. He's not afraid to sit in the corner, like. And that's just annoying to play against. When you're already playing against a team who's kind of better than you,
Are we saying a contest?
You know, Simp starts shooting your body, and then you got Celium, you know, snaking you on a head glitch somewhere, and now you can't get out of your spawn. Like, that's, you know, like, they literally demoralize teams. Like, Envoy was saying in the interview, it was like Envoy and like a couple other players were saying, they were like, you know, I think it was like Gunless. They were like, people just weren't trying this season because they were like, well, Faze is just going to win anyway. Because like, they were demoralizing people. And that's a big part of that, I think, is selling, is the way he plays. He's annoying to play against. It's annoying when you have a player like that and you can't really hit him back and punish him because his team is so good. So it's like, in order to get to him, you got to go through Simp, BG, and RC, like 3 all-time great players in order to get to him. And then you're probably going to get gunned when you get to him anyway, because guess what? He's an all-time great player too. So it's like people were chalking it this season. Like, they still had competition because there were still some teams that were really going at him, but a few of those teams were like, yo, this first place is not going to happen this season. And I kind of don't blame them, because that's, you know, that's tough stuff to play against. But that is actually going to do it for this video. Just sharing some thoughts, really. Definitely, I feel like Faze is, you know, on that path to be a dynasty and to be a top team for the next few years. I think they're kind of just now, I think, like I said, I don't think they've peaked yet, to be honest. I really don't, because I think there's a lot of good things to come with that team. But, you know, definitely like, comment, and subscribe. You know, I think the CDL's just been really entertaining these past couple of seasons, and I think they got some great COD coming next year. We'll see how, you know, we'll see how Vanguard works out, but it's definitely going to be entertaining to watch these guys compete and the different teams and kind of see how things shake out. But that's going to do it for this video. Definitely like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I go by the name of WeaponizedEX, and I will see you all next time.